everybody. It is awesome to see so many of you here bright and early. Thank you for coming and taking your time out of your morning to get some great information about the college essay and the college application process. If you have phones or things all like that, please put those away to give our guests your full attention, as they came also bright and early to share this with you. And so we thank them already in advance for coming out today. I have a list of questions here, some general questions that we're going to go through with each of our panelists, and then when we have time at the end, if you have any questions, particularly for the good of everyone. So if you are applying to one of these specific schools and you're like, you know, can you explain the psychology major at North Central? Like, that's going to be for another time. But we're going to stick with general, especially college essay type questions. When we are done, I will switch the slide up here, and you all will have first dibs to scan the QR code to sign up for your actual college Essay-palooza session. So that you can sign up for 1 or 2 20-minute sessions. There are 2 sessions per day for the 4 Tuesdays in October. So it's suggested that you pick maybe the first or second week, take your suggestions you got, go back at least a week or 2, fix them up, and then choose a second date later. Don't choose the 7:30 slot and the 7:55 slot on the same exact day. You won't have time to review unless you are bringing 2 completely different essays. We can talk about that later. So stay tuned for that. If don't run out. If you need to run out or whatever, an email will go out to you later this morning to all seniors to sign up. But space is limited, so that's kind of the bonus for you coming. You can get first dibs, but again, space is still limited, so get on that. All right, without further ado, thank you panelists for coming. I'm gonna first have you just start by briefly introducing yourself, what school you represent, maybe a quick 30-second elevator pitch on, you know, where you're located and what size you are and all that great stuff. So take it away.
All right. Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Emily Grimm. I'm the Associate Director of Admission at Lake Forest College. We are a small private liberal arts institution located in Lake Forest, Illinois, so just about 40 minutes or so north of here. Excited to be here and hopefully looking forward to connect.
Hi, good morning, folks. My name is Noah Fogerty, and I'm from DePaul University. DePaul, for those of you who don't know, is a private university with 2 campuses in Chicago. We enroll approximately 22,000 students across all of our undergraduate and graduate programs. We are a Catholic university. We're the largest Catholic university in the country, and more specifically, a Vincentian Catholic university.
Hello everyone, good morning. When I signed up to do this, I was actually at the University of South Carolina, but since then I've changed. And I'm now at Northwestern University right in Evanston, so 3 miles north of the city.
Hi, Aaron Betcher. I'm with the University of Illinois at Springfield. I'm our Associate Director of Admissions. And Illinois Springfield is probably the U of I you know nothing about, but it's basically the exact same degree as the other 2 U of I's, the exact same thing, with no lecture halls. You'll never be in a room like this for a class. All right, and while we do that, we have 4 of the top degrees right now in the state of Illinois, from pre-law to child advocacy to nursing and forensic science. We have the #1 programs in the state in all those areas.
Good morning. My name is Laura Kendall Zimmerman. I'm the Assistant Director of Admission at North Central College in Naperville, Illinois. We have about 2,600 students and we have around 90 academic programs, so we're able to focus on a really small classroom atmosphere and make sure that each of our students gets an individualized dynamic learning experience.
Great, thank you. So as you can see, we have a mix of, we have a public school, private schools, but even within the private schools, selective schools, smaller schools, middle-sized schools. Hopefully, if you have a list, that it's balanced and has some of those considerations as well. So, I'm gonna already go off script, sorry everybody. How many of you are on the Common App? So all 5 of you, great. How many of you require or use the Common App prompt? So all 5 of you, okay. So the Common App prompt, hopefully you are aware of. How many of you have a supplemental essay on top of that? Okay, so just Northwestern. So, Regina, can you maybe share with us what those essays are? And does that, if a school has a supplemental essay, is that looked at more than the Common App general one, or is it kind of the same?
So our supplemental essay is why Northwestern, and the main point of that, and you'll have a lot of schools, like for example, when I worked for the University of South Carolina, the Honors College essay was like, why the South Carolina Honors College? And a lot of the times with some of those highly selective programs or highly selective universities, it's a way that we can learn about why you're interested in our school besides our major, which we know people will come for majors, and we know people will come for maybe location, and we know they will come for maybe their dad went there or something like that. But we use that essay to learn what you learned about our school and why you think that you would be a good fit in that space. So it's not about you going through and knowing every single thing about Northwestern, but it's like, why did you apply in the first place? Like, what was your reasoning for even saying, like, I'm gonna select Northwestern on the Common App and I'm gonna take my time to actually fill this out and wait for a decision and all of those kinds of things. We look at it the same as the other essay, like from the Common App prompt, but that Common App prompt is more about you outside of the university, and the one that is the supplemental one is specifically about the university. So think of that Common App essay, you could write the same one and submit it to all of our schools, and that would teach us something about you. But then those specific supplemental ones are like, okay, so then why me? Like, as I'm choosing you, why are you choosing me?
Great, thank you. So as you may have heard, if you've gone to any other rep visits so far, you know, especially schools that have become very selective, have thousands of applications. They want to see why this school, why specifically this one. You're not just, because they're on Common App, rifling off a bunch of apps with no real research done or finding the right fit, which you've heard me talk about a lot. Since you all actually have an essay, how much weight would you see the essay has in the overall evaluation? Is it like more than some other things, less? Like, does it just depend? Is it just a formality that it's on there just to torture them all to write it, you know, and then you don't really look at it? How would you like put that in terms of its impact?
We do read them, so I just want to say that before I hand this over to people. A lot of the times they think, especially with larger universities or universities that get a lot of applications, is that we don't read your essays, and if you don't put time in it, that affects you. I would say more, because I had a student that put, I know you're not going to read this essay. When I worked for U of I, he said, I know you're not going to read this essay, so I don't know why I'm writing it. And he submitted that in the essay spot. And he had a 36 on the ACT, and we denied him. And his mom was upset. So do pick time, like spend time, but it's not the end all be all factor.
At North Central, our essay is actually optional. We don't require you to send it in, but it has very great weight when you're a student who's right on the margins of being admissible. If you write a stellar essay, that's gonna get you in the doors. And if you didn't put any effort into it, whether you actually wrote that you didn't think you were gonna read it, or you just made it clear that you didn't spend any time on it, that will mean that we will deny you.
I know for us, you know, we take a look at the essay, A, as a measure of kind of your writing skills. So when it comes to, you know, if you decide to enroll, where are your writing skills, and are there like areas that we need to help you improve on before we, you know, hand you off to your advisors and to your writing classes and everything while you're here. But similar to North Central, for our students that are kind of on the border, it does play a factor into it. Otherwise, a normal review, it's pretty weighted evenly across the board. With our like holistic review, everything's kind of weighted the same. So it's just another piece of information that we use to kind of help us in making that overall decision.
And I'll say with us, it actually has a lot of weight because of the students that are applying. A lot of the grades and test scores and things look very similar. And so your essay can sometimes be the deciding factor if we think that you'll be okay at Northwestern if something doesn't go your way, or if the major that you chose, like just to show us that maybe if your path that you've laid out for yourself isn't the path that you end on, then you'll be okay switching to another path. And so we do use it more just because if we have a lot of students who look exactly the same academically, which is normally great, the essay kind of helps us pull you apart from somewhere else. Like, hey, that kid wrote about, his visit to Morocco. Like that's kind of cool. But I mean, don't think about you have to like relive your traumas or anything like that to write to us, but just something that would make you stand out from all the great students that we have applying. Our acceptance rate is about 7%. So.
And I want to flip this a little bit because Northwestern is going to be a lot different in admissions than the rest of us. And I know DePaul's a little bit maybe more selective than us in Lake Forest and North Central, where we get a lot of common apps in between us. But here's, like at my school, who is selective, and when you look at the selectivity, we're selective. We're not super selective or whatever they call it now, elite selective, whatever Northwestern is now. But really, I'm looking at two things. Can you write at the college level? All right, I was a finance major. I don't know all of the grammar rules. I'll be honest. Should you have used a comma or a semicolon? I don't even know what the difference is. I majored in finance. Should you use this word to start the sentence? I don't know. I don't know the rules. All right, I'm just going to be completely honest. But can you write? Can you express yourself? Because college is a lot of writing papers. When you get in college, every week you're going to have a 5-page paper to write. That's college life. And we want to make sure that you're going to be successful. The other thing is, what can I learn about you in this essay that isn't already in your application? All right? I've got all your clubs and organizations. Got it. I've got your grades. So this is a step in addition to why you're going to be great. What about you makes you you? And getting that across to us, and maybe it's a story about going to Morocco. I mean, I'll give an example later that you guys will probably remember. But like, just tell us what makes you who you are. And we're not taking out a red pen and going, yep, this is a B or C. Like, I don't care about that. I don't want to go to Wikipedia and look up some word I've never heard before. Like, that doesn't impress me. And then the whole time I'm reading your essay, I'm like, does this kid really know what the word means? Like, literally, I'll do that when some weird word I've never heard before. And then I look it up on Wikipedia, and the entire time I read it, like, does the kid know what this means? I don't think they know what it means. All right? That doesn't impress us. Just be yourself. Tell us what makes you who you are. It doesn't have to be written like you're going for your doctorate degree as a dissertation. Just like, get across what you want to get across. And don't do stupid errors like the word I is actually a capital letter. It's not a lowercase letter with a stick with a ball on top. There's probably 1 in 15 to 20 papers I read on Common App that the word I is a lowercase letter. And it's really obvious because it's a stick, ball on top, white space. And then before we read your paper, we're going, can a kid write at the college level? Didn't they see the red line underneath this? Like, it's not that hard. So those are the things that I would tell you, which might differ, because at Northwestern, let's be real, they're denying really smart kids. Your valedictorians are going to get denied more than any other school. They're going to have the most denial letters, your valedictorian. All right? That's who's applying there. But the rest of our schools, we're a 60 to 65% admit rate. Yes, we're not admitting every kid that applies to us, but we're looking for reasons to admit.
So if you can add on to that or kind of go on to the next question, which, and Aaron kind of covered a lot of things, and if it's the same or different, what is the first thing that you look for when, is it, did they capitalize the I? If they didn't capitalize the I, I'm done, and I think I mentioned to some students before, I teach a college class now after school, and I get those papers, I'm like, come on, like you can't be that, right? So what is the first thing you look for? Do you stop reading then if you see that? Is it just like forget it? I know you said you read it all, you have to, but what's the first thing you look for, I guess, when you sit down to read?
I think we have said it a little bit, but I want to see that a student has put thought and effort into what they're sending to us. I'm the opposite of Erin. I actually have a copy editing background, and I do know the rules, and I do know what those words mean without having to look most of them up, although I occasionally will look them up to make sure that my understanding is correct, and usually I'm the one who's right and the student has used it incorrectly, which is a sure sign that you've overused a thesaurus. But that doesn't bother me as much as a student who hasn't used the grammar rules or who hasn't developed a full essay, when it's just like 8 to 10 sentences, or it's about a topic that they didn't have to put any thought into. They just sat down and wrote about, I'm not even sure. I don't want to throw out an example and turn you off of writing about something that you might be passionate about. But if you clearly haven't thought it through before you put it down, that's not demonstrating to me that you are ready to write at that college level. We don't expect you to know all of the rules right away. I'm not going to mark you down. I'm not going to say you can't be admitted because you didn't use the semicolon. Clearly, you can be successful if you don't learn those rules. But we do want you to be strong in your classes, and that requires being willing to put forth that effort.
I'll say the first thing that I look at on the essay is which prompt you chose. Because then as I'm reading, I'm actually thinking about like, is this student actually answering the prompt or thinking about the prompt? Or is it an essay that they've written already and then they just decided to put it in and not actually look at the prompt? And it's kind of those old rules like, write something and then tell us what you've written, and then, like kind of go through that whole flow. So if I get to the end of your essay and I'm just like, I don't know that this essay goes with the prompt, I'm trying to think like maybe they just tried to take an essay that they've already written and choose a prompt. But there is a prompt that says other, so just choose other. If you don't have anything to go with the prompt, just don't use it, which is completely fine. We read all of them, so still.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that point that you shouldn't be too beholden to the prompt if you feel like that's going to limit your expression and your creativity in this essay. That being said, if you are choosing a prompt, make sure that your essay is topical. I would agree with what others have said already in terms of just the length and the formatting of your essay. When I see that single paragraph word blob, I know I'm going to be immediately disappointed, because I think any good essay does have a beginning and a middle and an end, and your paragraph structure and all of that should reflect the fact that there is some flow to this story. But that, I think that there's a lot of different ways to kind of approach the way that you go about telling that story. I think one of the first things I notice when I'm looking at an essay is whether or not the student is relying more on dialogue to tell the story in quotations, or is it more of sort of a written narrative. Both are fine in their own way, but I think that each student sort of takes it upon themselves to make it personal and to tell the story in their own way, in a specific way that's unique to them.
I think for me, one of the things that I always kind of pay attention to is, especially if I've already met the student, whether or not that essay sounds like them. I've been able to pretty clearly tell when students have either over-edited or, maybe mom, dad, grandma, aunt, uncle, whomever decided to kind of step in and help edit as well and make some changes. And the essay starts off as, this is my student, and then ends with, I don't know who that is. So I always tell my students, just make sure that it reflects you and your voice, because that's the most important thing. I also I'm a kind of stickler. I have a chemical background in chemistry, so similar. I'm not really great with the English rules and language and everything. But it is one of those, if I see one giant paragraph, I'm immediately like, oh boy, buckle up. So make sure that you are formatting and make sure that you are, answering the prompt. Because if your essay is just all fluff and it talks around the prompt but never actually gets to the heart of it, it doesn't do us any good. It doesn't really serve its purpose in that way.
And I was going to say really quick to go off that, sometimes students are like, why do we only get 2 20-minute sessions, why, whatever, and part of the philosophy is that we don't want you to go to every teacher in the school and have 17 sessions, and then, again, your voice gets lost because so many different staff members reviewed your essay so many times. So I know it might seem frustrating, like I have 17 supplemental essays, why do I only have 2 20-minute sessions? Hopefully, if those of you I see glows, hopefully that means you're taking notes or something like that. These are the things to keep in mind. Like, did I do these? You can kind of self-edit. That's why we're having this, right? Self-edit. These things are the things to keep in mind, so that when you go to those sessions, it's mostly done. You're just getting a few checks and not having the person rewrite the whole thing for you. So don't expect to have your essay in 20 minutes be rewritten for you. That's not the goal of College Essay-palooza. And real quick, the Common App stats from last year, the most popular prompt is that last one, that choose your own topic. So don't be afraid to choose your own topic, but again, make sure it follows all the other rules that we've talked about, and not just like, oh, I really like this random essay that says nothing about me. It's just I got an A on it in class. That's not the point of that. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, the one thing that I think sometimes students overthink is they think they've got to have this massive life event that they're going to talk about. In all honesty, I do not care about the event in your life you are telling me about in the essay. I do not care. The point of this is to tell me why you're great. Most high school kids just give me details about an event. So I'm going to give you an example. Let's say sophomore year, you didn't do well in school, your dog passed away. Okay? I'm not admitting your dog or giving your dog a scholarship. I don't need a paper about the dog. All right? I don't. I want you to tell me why you're great. And I'll be honest. If I was to write a paper about college right now, I'd write it about grilled cheese sandwiches. Now, let me tell you, so my sophomore year of college, and I went to college with one of your counselors, all right? One day we were trying to figure out what we were going to have for lunch, and somebody said grilled cheese. I was being lazy. They got the 3 ingredients out, butter, cheese, and bread. And I looked back and I said, hey, one of you guys forgot the jelly or the jam for the grilled cheese sandwiches. And that was the day my life changed. Okay? Now, first, I'm going to teach you how to eat a grilled cheese real quick. You make it like normal. You toast 2 pieces of bread. And I actually ate this for lunch yesterday. And then you spread strawberry jelly on top of the piece of toast. All right? Now, some of you are looking at me like my roommates did. You probably dip it in tomato soup. Tomato's a fruit and it's disgusting, so we might as well use a good fruit like strawberries. Okay? Now, second, my essay would be about how that was the first time in my life that something I thought was completely normal wasn't. And my essay would talk about how I learned from that, why that's great. Now, why do I bring that up? I guarantee every time you see a grilled cheese sandwich for the next year, you think about, should you put jelly or jam on the grilled cheese sandwich? I just beat, if there's a pile of 200 for a scholarship, I beat 190 of them because I'm the grilled cheese guy. Nobody else wrote about it. And I guarantee you that's what we do when we do scholarships and admit, oh yeah, I remember that essay. They talked about Morocco. They talked about grilled cheese. I just beat most of you with better grades and I wrote about a grilled cheese sandwich. You don't need a big life event. You just need something that you can base it on. Okay? And like I said, when you see the next grilled cheese and you don't remember anything else about today except should you put jelly or jam on it, that's what I want you to think about as you write this essay. All right?
All right, I guess I'll move on to the next question. Let's see here. Let's start with some of the positive things, or what is something that's made the best essays stand out. So, like Aaron kind of alluded to something, very specific. Like, what are the best ones? Do they have something in common, or if you have other examples, if you could share that.
Well, we've had a wonderful example already, a very humorous one too, but Aaron touched on some key things that I think I'd like to highlight about what makes that essay special, because he didn't really write about grilled cheese, right? He didn't explain how to make the sandwich, he didn't tell us the details of how it tasted, he explained his learning from that event. And for me, a great essay is one that shows me that a student is open to growth. So you can write about a mistake that you've made, you can write about a significant event in your life. That's not off the table. If you want to tell us about that, you certainly can. You can write about meeting a person who had an opinion that was different than yours and how you changed your outlook after talking with that person, or even taking on a new challenge, a new sport, a new instrument, a class that you thought was going to be too difficult, and maybe your grade slipped a little bit, but here's what you learned from that class. I want to see that you're open-minded, that you're willing to wrestle with new ideas, that you're going to put in that same effort that I want to see in the essay too, so that I know that you're going to be successful on my campus, but I also know that you're going to be somebody who enhances our community while you're there.
I've had students that were really good storytellers, where they like kind of put you into their essay. And so I remember this last year reading for the South Carolina Honors College. I had a student write about the time she broke her clavicle. And I know it sounds like, ugh, but she was like, the way that it started off was just like, so we're on a boat. And I was like, what is about to happen? Like on this boat. And then she was just like, her friends were pulling her to do like rafting. Don't make me lie. I don't remember like the details of what she was on, but something that pulled behind water and like the noises she heard and like how she came up. And I was just like, oh crap, like what is she about to tell me? And then she taught me about how she had to adapt to being with a broken clavicle and having to go to school and, you know, not be able to wear a backpack and roll up a backpack and all these kinds of things. But she didn't stay on the broken bones and such, but the way that she pulled me in was like the story of it. And so not that you have to have like this dramatic, you know, story, because not all of us are creative writing majors or anything like that. But I think if you can kind of make me see where you're at or where you're coming from, like maybe more like descriptive words, those are the essays to me that stick out the most, and not like, you know, I played a sport and a lot of people do, so it's like, what about that sport made you want to write about it in this essay? And so some of those descriptors, I think, are the things that I look for the most that kind of set your essay apart from any of the other ones.
I think for me, some of the essays that have been the most effective and the ones that have left the best impression on me are able to take something that is very everyday and ordinary and transform it into something extraordinary. And it can be something, you know, that's, to anyone else in the world would be just, you know, a simple object or a simple thing. You know, I think about essays that I've read about, like, your favorite meal at a neighborhood restaurant, or a trinket that you've had since you were a baby that is special to you. When you're able to communicate those types of stories and why that thing is significant to you, it tells us a lot about who you are, what your values are, and so those essays can be very revealing, I think, in terms of getting a better sense for who you are as a person. And I would also say that, you know, it's important to use this opportunity with your essay to really draw out more layers to yourself than just what is already captured in the application. You know, you might be a student athlete and baseball is like your life and your passion. And that's great, you can write your essay about that if you want to, but I've already seen that on your resume, I've already seen that on your activity section. Give me something else about you that I can run with, and tell me more about the layers to who you are and what makes you a unique person.
I think the last thing that I would add is the essays that really kind of stick with my mind. And I've been doing this for almost 10 years now, so there's a few essays over the years that I'm like, oh man, I totally remember that. It's when your passion for whatever that subject is or whatever you're writing about comes through. It doesn't, again, it could be a life event where, you know, something really exciting happened, or something that, you know, you grew from or you learned from, or, you know, something that you're just excited about. Even if it's a mundane subject of, you know, like me, I nerd out about science. If you wrote an essay about how you did great in organic chemistry, I would be jazzed about it, as long as you were just as jazzed while writing the essay. So the passion for whatever that subject may be, whether it's your story, you know, something that you really enjoy doing, something that, you know, like grilled cheese, you have a very strong opinion on, right? As long as that passion comes through, that sticks with me, and that is important to me.
Great. So we heard some great tips. Hopefully everybody took either mental or actual notes about some of the things to really think about that make you stand out, that are important. And now we've said that you read them all, but are there any situations kind of besides just the opposite of what you just said, like not following the prompt or, whatever, or not making it personal. Anything else that students should, maybe look through their essay first to make sure that they didn't make this mistake? So any big mistakes you see, any things that they should really, when they're proofreading, like, oops, I did that, or whoa, I shouldn't do that, or any, topics that maybe really shouldn't be discussed in this way, in this college essay?
I think I'll kind of kick it off. For me, one of the most obvious things is, did you finish your essay? Because I've had times where students have, either they're doing it in Google Docs or, somewhere else, they copy paste with the intention that they are going to go back and finish it. They finish it in the Google Doc, they never finish it in their essay. So sometimes I've had it where, it's really great, we're off to a great start, we're halfway through and it just ends. And then I'm left hanging of, how is this going to end? Which does put a little bit of an intrigue in there, but also to me kind of says, you didn't go back and review and read it one more time and make sure that everything was good before hitting submit. So just make sure that if you are editing in some other format and then putting it into your application essay, read it one more time, read it 2 more times, have another set of eyes, just look at it to make sure that you don't have a sentence that just is ending or a paragraph that doesn't make sense, or if you're like me, sometimes I put like parentheses that say insert something here. Make sure you take those out too.
In the worst essay that I've ever seen, this student decided to recount the 4 different times that they were suspended from school. And that automatically was a bit of a red flag. I think it's fine maybe if you were suspended once and you can talk about what you learned from that experience, maybe there's an essay there. But 4 times, maybe there's a concerning pattern of behavior that raises some eyebrows. But the student concluded their essay with, in conclusion, I hope that you will accept me to Duke University. Yep. And this was not Duke University. So especially if you are using the Common App and your essay is going out to multiple colleges, make sure you aren't specifically mentioning a school in there, because every school that is not that school will definitely notice.
Yeah.
I'll say for one of mine, and I think it's something that we've, like students think they need to have this in order to make their essay good, and that's like relive a trauma or think of like the worst thing that has happened to them and then tell us how you overcame it. And here's the thing, like y'all are like 17, you don't need to relive a trauma that happened or something that was the most horrible thing in your life for you to stick out. And I think sometimes it's not the worst thing for a student to do, but it does make me sad that you thought that you needed to tell me about that thing in order to be good at my college, because I'm sure that there's so many other positive things about you that you didn't need to relive your traumas, and I didn't want to put you through that to think that that would make you be good at my school. And so I think that's one of the things that, not that it's shy away from it or anything like that, because if you learned a lesson from it, absolutely write about it, but don't think that you have to find the worst possible thing that's happened in your life and then use that in your essay, because we don't want you to have to live through that, and we're sorry that you feel that you need to. But then I would say my other big thing, and this is coming from a person who is a doctoral student right now, using the words there, and there wrong, or and your, like some of those ones, and I'm like, 2, like how many O's is there? And I think that's part of the grammar part of it. Just like those little things, like when you do take it from like Google to the app or whatever the case is, that formatting and checking those words, because sometimes the formats change and you think it looks great and then you copy it and it does not look great on our end. So I think just that one check at the end makes me feel like, oh, this was good. But when I can see that it's all over, there's half a paragraph, things are changed, I'm like, they didn't even try a little bit. So.
Yeah, sorry about that grilled cheese. Traumatic experience for me that I wrote about. But what I would tell you is this. I think students, when they get their stuff proofread, are asking the wrong questions. For one, I wouldn't have mom or dad read the paper. I mean, even when my kids go to school, and I do this for a living, I'm starting my 28th year doing this. I hope I don't read my kids' papers, because it's never going to be good. If your mom or dad tells you it's great, it's not great, they're being nice. And if they rip it up, you're not listening to them anyways. Okay? You have to take this to a person you trust. Again, I wasn't an English major. I didn't like my English teacher in high school. I thought she was an idiot. So if she would have put stuff on my paper, I'd be like, you just don't know what you're talking about. You're not turning this paper in for a grade. You're turning it in to get into college. So the number one question to ask your proofreader is, what was your feeling when you got done reading this essay? If they don't tell you word for word what you expect to hear, you've got work to do. All right, because you don't get to sit next to any of us and tell us we're reading it wrong, or it's not coming across right. Yeah, hopefully your proofreader picks up the there and there. I know those rules. Yes, I made it. But you know what I mean? But on top of that, I think so much of the proofread is part of the grammar side and not the content side. And I know from your counselors when they're reading it in those 20 minutes, they're going to give you some content thought process. But you've got to remember it's your decision what you end up putting in the final thing. You're not going to offend your counselor if you decide hey, this is great advice. I mean, if Elon Musk listened to everybody's advice, we wouldn't have Tesla. The people at Cisco have spent $26 billion a year on research and development. The guy who invented Zoom worked in the research and development, and they said it's stupid. So he's like, all right, I'll just start my own company. Now Cisco is looking for the next Zoom, and they're spending $26 million a year to find it, and they had it. And they told the guy he was an idiot. And so, take the feedback, decide what's important to you, and then put that in the paper. Don't have 5 different people's words in there like you were saying. It's obvious. Your words are key, and what is the feeling you want me to have while reading this? I guarantee it's not feel sorry for me. And 80% of you will write a paper, feel bad for me, feel bad for me, feel bad for me, admit me. That's, all right, great, I feel bad for you. I still don't know if you're going to be successful here. What about you makes you great? And what do you want to get across? And if you do that consistently, you're going to be in great shape.
That was a beautiful summary, and now I'm going to go off on a tangent. When I see a poorly done essay, and I see between 3 and 5 of these every year, so it's not huge, but it is consistent. I get essays that are just venting and complaints. So maybe it's someone who did have that suspension story that they could have written about what they learned from it, but instead they write about why it was wrong that they were suspended. Or they could have written about what they learned from doing poorly in a class, but instead they write about how much the teacher hated them or how bad the circumstances were. If you show me that you had a learning opportunity and you learned nothing from it, I'm done. That's not helpful. That doesn't teach me anything that I want to see about who you are, any strength about you. So that's one that I would definitely stick away from that, and that's a great question to ask if you are writing about one of those kinds of experiences that was something negative in your life. When you do have that proofreader go over it and you're asking what's the feeling you got, the feeling should be that you have changed as a person because of this in a positive way. And then I have in all capitals in my notes that I wrote down because I'm the kind of person who writes notes. No proofreading. We've talked about having your paper 2 edited and we've talked about proofreading, but if you have nobody look this over, it's going to be very apparent. Even those of us who are the best writers make errors. Those of us who are pursuing master's degrees in creative writing, and that's me, make errors and sometimes put the wrong theirs when they're writing. We know the rules, but our brains are focused on the content, and so we put the wrong thing down, and you don't catch that when you do your own proofreading. So you do need to have somebody who is not you look it over before you submit it.
Great, thank you. And that could be, and this is just my opinion, it could be each other, right? You're gonna meet with someone at college, Essay-palooza, a staff member, they're gonna look it over. Could be a math teacher, could be an English teacher, could be a counselor. They have a rubric. That rubric is posted in the college application guide that you should all know about at this point, under the essay menu. And so you can see it yourself and you can have your friends do it or somebody that's not probably a parent look at that on your own time as well. Again, so somebody else they can just follow that, and that can hopefully help if you have a lot. So as we are coming up with time starting to run out, does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
When we're writing our essay, do we have to have the prompt like somewhere on the top or somewhere in the essay?
Yeah, so I probably can answer. Yeah, you'll just click it or mention it in the application itself. Yeah. When you come for College Essay-palooza, you need to have it on your paper so that the reviewer can see what you're writing about. Instead of trying to remember exactly what the wording was. So yeah, make sure you delete that before you're copying and pasting it into Common App for sure. Yeah, in the back.
You mentioned something about putting the name of the college in the essay. Are there any like pros about naming the college you're going to in the essay, or is that not like?
So the question was, are there any pros to putting the name of the college in the essay? So it's probably two things, right? The common essay versus the individual one.
So if you apply to us, we already know you're interested. So you putting the name of the essay doesn't really do you any good necessarily. That's why Northwestern asks why Northwestern. That's your chance to put Northwestern's name in the essay. I would create your whatever essay you're using for everybody as a this is why I'm great essay and I don't need to put the name of the college in there. You know, and I'll be honest, at my school, do I admit some kid who said, oh, I wanted to go to the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign? Maybe, right? They're smart, I get it, whatever. All right, I might laugh, I might call them on the phone and be like, hey, you realize you did this in a Common App essay, right? Because it's my job to build a relationship with them when we laugh about it. But I don't think that's going to help you at Northwestern when they say, this is why I want to get into Stanford. That's the denial at a school like that, right? And so I just wouldn't do it. And would you guys agree with that?
I absolutely would agree with that. One thing I would add is if you're applying to just a few schools and you want to say, like, this is why I think I should be admitted to school X, and you intentionally want to put their name in, the Common App might not be the best fit for you. So at that point, you may want to look at, all right, is it better for me to do 5 essays all on why Lake Forest, why Northwestern, why DePaul, basically doing those individual ones that you can tailor to the institution, or is it easier or better for you to do the more general common application, leave college names out of it, because again, we do take note. I laugh at it too. I'm like, oh, I hope they got into Elmhurst. We take note of it, but it is, it's something to just kind of keep in mind. Is it better for you to kind of keep it general and do the supplementals where you could talk about your interest in that school and keeping the main one general? Or is it better for you to do just the supplementals in a way through each school's individual application so that you can tailor it?
One quick thing, and I know a lot of the times there's that extra box that says, like, tell us something that we didn't learn in the essay or whatever the case is. That is absolutely not the time to continue your essay because you are over the word amount, or to say like something that didn't affect everyone. So for example, if you're like, sophomore year we were out for COVID, like, yeah, everybody was. So like you don't need to add that in there, but if there is something specific that you think wasn't addressed across any other part of your application and is something that you think is vital to us saying yes or no, then include it in that extra box, but it is not a crime to leave the extra box empty. And I know sometimes kids use that as an extra essay, so I just wanted to point that out, like, you don't have to use it. And if you don't have anything to tell us, just don't tell us, and it's completely fine. So just wanted to throw that out.
The additional information that's an option, yes. Glad brought that up.
Yeah, and if you're going to do the additional essay, it needs to be as well done as the regular essay. All right, think of this like a dating thing. Maybe you see somebody at a party or get together, and you're like, oh, that person's really attractive. You tell your friends you're going to go over there, and then like 10 minutes later, you're back with your friends, and like, oh, you got turned down. No, that person's crazy. Okay? If you write 2 essays, and one's really well done, and the other one has the word I in a lowercase, because I know you just wrote one real quick, that's not helping you. If you're going to do the supplemental essay, it needs to be as well written as your other essay. Okay? Otherwise, just leave it blank. Just leave it blank.
Great. I think I was gonna say something, but I forgot. Does anybody have any questions? Well, I think, yeah.
Do you guys have any suggestions on why major essays? I have a few applications that like overall like why you want to do this. Do you have any suggestions on those types of essays?
Great. So we have the why Northwestern or why college. She's asking, what about the why this major question? Any tips on the why this major?
So I think the why this major helps if the school is really known for that major. For example, when I worked at Illinois, they were really known for bioengineering. And if a student wrote an essay that did not include things about bioengineering, they were denied because there was only 150 spots. And so I think, for example, if it's psychology, which is a great major because it was my major at Illinois, Champaign-Urbana. Psychology is great at all of our schools and we all do it different and you'll come out with a psych degree and you'll be great at it. But if it's something very, very specific, like if you're going to the University of South Carolina for international business, which is #1 in the country, you want to talk about why you think that you would be able to add to that #1 in the country number. So I don't think that the why major essay is as important for some of those general majors. But let's say, for example, you are wanting to be a bio major, right? And because you know there's so many directions that you can go in biology. So maybe you want to talk about, I'm becoming a bio major because I feel like your school will help me get to this because I want to do this medical program or veterinary school or whatever the case is, like how my major can help lead to your ultimate goal. And so I think it's just that toss-up of if the school is known for it, if there's something specific reason that you chose it. So for example, you visited DePaul and you saw a professor and he was great in this, you know, I don't know, chemical engineering class, and you're like, that professor in chemical engineering changed my mind and that's why I'm applying to chemical engineering. I think that's when the major essays give you the most impact. But if it's like psychology, sociology, unless there's something very specific about that school where their psychology program is just different than the other hundreds of psychology programs, it doesn't really make that big of a difference in us saying yes or no, because about 70% of kids will change their major after the first year. So you wrote this like crazy good essay about it, and then when you're graduating, you're like a media studies major. So it's like psychology was super great, and you didn't actually get a psychology degree. So I think that's kind of why it's not as important as knowing you as a person will be persistent in whatever you choose and whatever you graduate from our schools from, and whichever direction life may take you, because now you have hundreds of options versus the ones that you have in high school.
And I would add for both the why the school and why this major, make sure that it follows the same advice of being about you and what you're going to do, not the Wikipedia definition or the Google definition. Like, I want to do bioengineering because bioengineering is the study of, like, that. They know that. They know, don't tell Northwestern how great Northwestern is. They know that they're great. Why do you need to be there? So the Google, or if you can white out Northwestern and put in a different school, then what's the difference? So that was the bell. Sorry if I cut you off. If you can stick around for a couple minutes, I am going to switch to the QR code so people can start scanning that and signing up. Wally, once you scan that, put your phone down for a second and give our panel a huge round of applause for coming out.